Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scouts. Today it's all about Sky Sports Fantasy Football and there's £50,000 up for grabs for the winner. Will one of us win it? Actually Luke can, but can I? No, because I'm absolutely stupid. So my name is Joe and joining me ahead of Gameweek 20's fixtures is Luke. Luke, how are you?
I'm alright, I'm not even going to say anything else. Please elaborate. What do you mean?
Right, okay. So last night, Spurs played Liverpool. Mane got a couple of assists, shot tier, goal. Kane was injured for 1 point. So what is the worst possible move a human being could have possibly have done last night? That's me. So I transferred out Mane to Kane. That move has now cost me 2 transfers on the night, about 15 points. Plus, we were talking off air, if I make reasonable use of those transfers and they should get me around 10 points, then I'd probably lost over those 2 transfers 20 points. So that whole game cost me 30 points.
Wow.
I've got a player I need to get rid of.
Yeah.
I'm down to 20 transfers. That's the okay bit. I've got 20 transfers.
That's fine.
So a lot of people are in the sort of 15, 16, maybe less mark who are thinking, I've got Kane. So we've got lots of questions on that. We have also questions about, how we climb up the rankings. We climb up the rankings by having players like Mane in that no one else owns. So I threw away a beautiful opportunity.
What possessed you? Was it just the fear of no Kane? Was that what it was?
It's partly that. I knew I wanted Kane in. Mane, up to that point, was not posting good stats. I already had Salah, so I wouldn't have captained Mane anyway.
All right, that was going to be my next question. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been with the old.
No.
You'd have got 32 points for a Mane captain, wouldn't you?
No, I would not have captained Mane, so at least I wouldn't have got that. I would have captained Salah, definitely. And Mane, I knew one was going to go, because I wanted a Spurs asset, looking at those fixtures. And that's the thing, that's the timing. We were here last week going how wonderful it was to own Vardy, or you wanted Vardy. I was sitting smugly with Vardy. It turns out he then had a hernia, needed an operation.
Yeah.
And we got these players in for these great fixtures. And as we'll discuss, Spurs are handy, and I now have no Spurs.
We also mentioned a few, the value of a transfer, right? Last week, and this is why I know people try to put numbers on it, and I think it's very, very tough to do so. But yeah, it just highlights it. There, you've got 2 swaps for a net loss, whereas you can use 1 and get 60 points if you go Rob Holding. So transfers don't always mean points.
Holding, Cancelo. Overall, I did well. I got over 100 points in the week, so I'm happy with that. And as we discuss, I've got a different strategy that's bringing success, which is go mad on City, which is something you've been doing as well. So before we come to our teams and have a look at them, the man of the match is Souček, Saka, Grealish, Barnes, Rafinha, Hudson, Odoi. I've grouped all those together. These are quite nice or better price non-premium midfielders, so we're looking at the value there for those perhaps needing some money pre-overhaul. But others include Dunk, Jagielka, and Cancelo, and Watkins as well. And I note that Alexander-Arnold got the man of the match. Thank God it wasn't Mane. I was really hoping it wasn't. I was just thinking, no, please don't pile it on. I thought I was, about to call up Romeo's mum and say, please, I know you're in the stands, stop it. Passing tier 2, basically City and Chelsea defenders. Kovacic again, and Mane did get that annoyingly. Tackles tier 2, Mitchell and Rodriguez back. Saves tier 2, Pope, Guita, Patricio. Now you decide to get saves tier 2.
Trolled all over the place.
I had him for months. Finally got rid of him a little while ago. Areola as well got saves tier 2. Shots tier 2. Grealish, Souček and Watkins. I just have all of that bunch there. Anything spring out? But bearing in mind we've got limited games left before overhaul.
Yeah, I mean there's some nice players there, but to be honest, I wouldn't really be looking at using any swaps now. I mean, obviously, our hands are forced a little bit with the Kane situation, I think. And on that note, I mean, and we're going to have loads of questions about that, I assume.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 3 games and it's a premium asset. For me, as we were just talking about the value of a transfer, how many times throughout the season can you look through it and think, I'm going to get a 3 for 0 on virtually any player in the game?
And captainable as well.
And captainable potentially. So to me, it's worth it straight away. Yeah, it's annoying, but it just means you just have to chalk off one of those, 2 for 1 or 3 for 1s later in the season. You just have to take it on the chin because this is more likely, I would say, to net you more points.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but from there, Barnes is obviously a standout at the moment. We've been talking about him for a little while. I had him in my team, I think, twice this season already. Yeah. He's been up and down for me, had been frustrating, but I think the injury to Priat and also just generally his form means that he's a lot more nailed now. So I do really like him for his games, especially the one versus Leeds. Rafinha's great. I mean, he's someone to look at past overhaul as well. If you want to cover Leeds, I mean, Bamford seems like the worst option of the two at the moment. So Rafinha's definitely in my thoughts. Watkins has been very good. I mean, the problem is you've just got Jack Grealish, who just is basically the same but better and more highly owned. So I suppose it just depends which slot you want to use, a midfielder or a forward there. But apart from that, I mean, the keepers we've been talking about all the time, the same guys are popping up, Pope and Areola. When it comes to overhaul, Pope, Areola, Edison, all these guys are in
Martinez, obviously.
And Martinez, are all in my thoughts, and I haven't quite decided yet. I'm almost pushing, these decisions are in the back of my mind, but until it actually comes to the time, I mean, Kane is a perfect example, right? Suddenly he gets injured or De Bruyne gets injured and your whole overhaul team changes. So
it's completely, it's freed up money that I don't want to do another transfer. I don't want to make 3 transfers with Kane's injury. So I just want to move him on. So
I've literally been saying I'm not going to use any more swaps when I got down to about 20. I wanted 20 at overhaul, and ever since then there's just been something that pops up all the time. And basically for me and for some of the others with lower swaps in the top, we now have to just get lucky that we don't get any big injuries moving forward, because otherwise we can't win. It's as simple as that. If it continues at this pace where all the big hitters are getting injured every other week, then we're just out of the frame. It's as simple as that. But there you go.
I mean, we'll come to the Kane chat a bit later, but initially in my thoughts, the obvious move is Son. I need Spurs cover. He's likely to be up top. He's likely to be on penalties. I don't know, because we're in uncharted territory with Son this season, because Kane has been his creator, has been the guy creating it. So without Kane, will he have that service? He has done in the past when Kane's been out, but then that's been when Ali's been around, when Eriksen's been around. It's a different side this season. So,
who do you think even comes in for Kane, just on that note? Because obviously they've got this Vinicius bloke, which seems a like for like, but then you've got Gareth Bale sat there. Part of me thinks he might throw Gareth Bale in, which completely may change the dynamic.
What's going to happen? I think that Son is, I mean, he will know that Son is his best striker, so Son will play up front. So it's more a case of who replaces Son where he usually plays, and so we could be looking at Bale, Moura, and Dembele could be a bit further up. I don't know. That's what I mean. It's unknowns really. So it's taking a gamble. The gamble now at the moment is please stay fit and get me any points.
I just want to say sorry as well, because I think for the last few weeks I've been saying Harry Kane historically gets an injury around now and then misses most of the season, and that will come at some point, I imagine, and here it is.
Apparently it's both his ankles.
I'm surprised he's held up this long, to be fair. The thing with Kane now is the worry that when he comes back, will he actually be the same player for a while? Because we've seen it so many times where his form just completely drops off a cliff after an injury. I mean, I'm not worried, but you never know.
It's one to watch, but it's annoying with overhaul, because especially if you've got limited transfers after the overhaul, you don't want to be making moves getting Kane back in again. You just want him in place. You want him in situ. So let's move on to your team. You did really well. Let's have a look here. So you've got Meslier in goal, Stones, Holding, Cancelo, who you captain for 50 points. That's something you're going to remember for years to come. Diaz, 10 points. Stones, 10 as well, by the way. Antonio, El Ghazi, Fernandez was captain. And then you had up front. At the moment, you've got Kane, you've got Salah, and Watkins. So what was your score? There must have been a huge score this week.
I don't know. I've not even looked. Let me have a look quickly. I got 128 points.
Wow.
Which I don't know. Basically, in the overall leaderboard, I mean, it's tough where I am. I was 50th going into this week. During the week, I went up to 47th.
Wow.
And now after Spurs Tottenham last night, I've dropped down to 54th. So that will just be because I had Kane and Salah, which I think virtually most of the people would have had. But then the odd person will have had a Robertson or someone like that, or maybe a Mane thrown in there. So I dropped down a couple of places, but it's so tight at the top. We're talking like 1 or 2 points all over the place. I mean, I suppose it's tight everywhere across the league. 1 or 2 points nets you big jumps.
I know. Well, I mean, I just still think of that Mane. If only I kept Mane. But yeah, I mean, I'm hovering around the inside the top 1,000 mark with 20 transfers currently. But yeah, so I mean, looking at the positives there, Cancelo. I mean, that was a big difference between your team and my team this week. Is that extra 25 points from Cancelo? I mean, you've been saying for a while. I mean, been looking at the stats. I mean, he was due a haul definitely because of his creativity.
I mean, it's easy to say now in hindsight, I suppose, but it felt like this week's haul for Cancelo was more signposted than any other, just because he'd got his first attacking return the week before. Was it in the Cup or the Champions? I can't remember what it was.
It was in the Cup,
Was in the Cup, right. And obviously the substitution suggested he would start. We then heard the news that he's probably likely to play at right back because Walker was suggested Walker might be back. But then I just think, Cancelo's good left or right back, but I think at right back he's got an extra dimension. And then obviously you're almost at a baseline, aren't you, with the home to West Brom? You think, well, they're going to get a clean sheet. He's probably going to get passing bonus the same as all the other defenders. So for me, why not go for the one who's got the added attacking threat? I mean, I know Stones just scored a brace the other week and Diaz can score. Of course, that could have happened and punished. But we're talking his XG numbers over the whole season is the highest of any defender in the entire league. So for me, it felt like this was a time to do it. And I think a lot of people actually captained Cancelo. So in the end, it didn't turn out to be too much of a differential. The thing for me that actually hurt was not having Gundogan. So Gundogan, compared to a lot of the other guys, I looked at if I had Gundogan instead of El Ghazi, which I did weigh up a lot, but because I'm low on swaps, didn't want to do, I'd be sat in 25th right now. So that's what I'm talking about, being very tight up there. So he is the player at the moment. I mean, him and Jack Grealish, scoring big, are the two sort of well-owned players in the top 100 or so that I didn't have, and both of them hauled this week. So the fact that they both hauled and I still didn't drop too much, basically because of that Cancelo captain, I guess, and a few other bits and pieces, like Watkins got 10 points compared to Jack's 14, I think he got. So in the end, I sort of was covered a little bit, but I got away with it, so to speak, because those two players, Jack Grealish and Gundogan, really almost could have destroyed me.
I do not own Grealish in FPL, but I do in Sky, and it is a comfort blanket because every match he looks the best player on the pitch. And you just it's a question of how many, and then sometimes he comes away with a blank, and you think, oh, how did that happen?
I think since Barkley's come back and he's back in his left midfield slot again, he's gone up another level again straight away. He just loves that position, and he's unstoppable. I think he literally is unstoppable. So he's a big worry, and I'm obviously not going to make those moves before overhaul. So I've got 3 more games of watching Jack Grealish and possibly Gundogan as well. I've got to survive.
Immediate issues there, I can't see any except for one, and that's
El Ghazi.
Well, no, I don't think so with El Ghazi, because yes, you mentioned you haven't got Grealish. El Ghazi might get you 1 or 2 points or so, but you've only got those limited games for overhaul. Can you get a player in for El Ghazi that can be worth that precious transfer when you have Watkins as well? So El Ghazi's a sort of he's like a vitamins supplement. He's just a bit extra for Watkins.
My thought process on that was Jack Grealish still can get his yellow and get banned. The moment that happens, and he's been so lucky to escape. Even again last week, he was petulant at the very end of the match. I thought he was going to get a booking after the match. It's happened every week. So I just feel like sod's law. The moment I take him out, Grealish gets that yellow card, and then obviously El Ghazi's going to play the game after.
That would be so gutting.
I know. So I'm stuck in this Diego Costa fourth yellow card situation with him.
Never happen. The big noticeable difference there, the problem to look at is Kane. So what are your thoughts with Kane? You've got flexibility there with 4-3-3. So what are you thinking with Kane?
Well, to be honest, I'm still undecided, but Sun obviously makes the most sense. I mean, they've all got 3 games now, I believe, until the overhaul's
Yeah.
over. I think I've got that correct. Everyone's got 3
Yeah.
games. But obviously, Spurs have got Thursday, the 4th of February, home to Chelsea, which is a single match day,
Yeah.
which we all had Kane penciled in for. So it's almost a 4 games over a 3, really, because obviously
Yeah.
he gets the captaincy on top of it.
Also, West Brom as well coming up.
Yeah, and then the game after that is home to West Brom.
Yeah.
So I think I've just got to not overthink it and get Son. The thing is, I do worry that, like many, that now Kane's gone, and the fact that Spurs goals in general are, you know, they don't score an awful lot, do they? Usually score 1 or 2 early on and then don't try. And I think, well, with Kane, is that even going to come? I mean, away to Brighton's a very tough game. So I don't necessarily like him initially. Then you've got home to Chelsea, where I feel like, is he going to score in that? I mean, we've got very limited info on Chelsea, but at the moment it looks like they're going to set up and pass the ball to death in a back 5. So to me, that doesn't scream points for Son.
Stat-wise, Brighton's defence is excellent, particularly at home. So yes, it doesn't scream to me massive haul for a Spurs asset.
And then that home to Chelsea game. I mean, at the moment, to me, I mean, we've got very limited info. We don't know how Spurs will set up necessarily. We don't really know much about Chelsea at all. But it just seems like that could be a 4-pointer there very easily.
Yeah.
But it's the home to West Brom game that, I mean, if they haven't got Kane, it might be a bit tougher. But I feel like you have to almost have him for cover now. Like that's the thing. It's just that everyone else is probably going to go Son. He could be on penalties, and it's all good having these thoughts that he might not do well in these games, which I've genuinely got, and I feel like if I followed my gut, I may avoid it. But it just seems like it could also easily be suicide, similar to Gundogan, I guess, and ignoring him. And that's my other thing I was going to say is my other thought process is just to ignore them and just go straight for Kane to Gundogan, which covers me off. Because he's been great. They've also got fantastic games.
Yeah.
I mean, home to Sheffield United, Gundogan could easily hit a huge haul that could be worth not having the captain. I could just ignore Spurs Chelsea entirely. I mean, the other thing, the only third option I thought in my mind was, well, I could just get a Chelsea asset instead, because home to Burnley, right? Seeing their passing numbers in that first game. Imagine you went Thiago Silva. I mean, that could be a 10-pointer straight away.
I think he seems the safest according to Chelsea fans. I mean, all rather it's just that those sort of old heads at Chelsea seem safe.
I mean, who scores more, Son away to Brighton or Thiago Silva? I mean, home to Burnley to me is almost a 10-pointer already. And we see when we have these decisions in Sky, so often the defender ends up being the better option.
I think what it is ceilings and floors, isn't it? And we sort of know what we're going to get with Silva, but with Son, we don't know. It's 2 point. He could be getting 18 points.
Yeah. And he often doesn't get shots on target and stuff. So you feel if they both fail, Thiago Silva's at least going to get 5 points there.
Yeah.
But then you go to Thursday the 4th, you know, Thiago Silva captain away to Spurs. I mean, that could be 2 points, could be 4, could be 5, not great. May not even play, I don't know for sure. And then away to Sheffield United, could easily get bonus. So he also could outscore Son and is in my thoughts, but I feel like that's a slightly more maverick move that I probably won't go with. So very long story short, it will probably be Son. But I am tempted by going Gundogan and just thinking, despite him not having the captain game, City are just so good, and his ceiling is so high that in that one game home to Sheffield United, he could outscore Son next 3 games potentially.
It's tough. I think that if you already have a Spurs asset like Højbjerg, for example,
I'd just keep it. I
wouldn't bother with Son. I'm not going to actively get in Højbjerg, but if I already had Højbjerg in, I think you're covered. I think you're covered there for, well, he got a goal. I don't think that's going to come very often. But at least you're going to get some kind of tiers there.
The other option as well that I feel, I mean, it depends how your team's set up. A lot of these people might not have the same issues as me. Barnes and Maddison. I mean, Leicester.
Yeah.
Leicester have got a nice little 3 games, I think, where they could get points as well. I mean, home to Leeds screams basketball match to me.
I got Vardy in.
Away to Fulham, I feel like, I mean, Fulham, they're decent, but I feel like Leicester could score 2 goals there.
Yeah.
Maddison or Barnes could be good there as well. And then the final one is away to Wolves. Now, the thing with Leicester as well that I do like is that they offer alternative captains. So this week, Sunday, the 31st of January, you've obviously got Chelsea home to Burnley, where most people won't have any option. You've got Leicester at home to Leeds, which gives me the alternative captain if you were to go there. I feel like that could be a really good basketball match. You got West Ham at home to Liverpool. Now, given the way Salah's blanked, 7 game weeks in a row, West Ham looking pretty solid. You know, most people may end up on Salah as default here as captain. I am at the moment.
Yeah.
And then Brighton at home to Spurs, as we just discussed, Kane's going to be out, and they may not go to Son or may not trust Son in his first game without seeing him. So suddenly you've got an alternative captain there in a Barnes or a Maddison that could propel you above the average people or the other people around you.
Yeah.
And it carries on, I think. Like on Wednesday the 3rd, you've got Salah at home to Brighton, which will be most people's captains. You got Jack Grealish, you could use home to West Ham, could do that one. City away to Burnley, we get to see the lineup, so that's very likely going to be most people's captains. But if the lineups are a surprise for any reason, then you've obviously got Maddison who could play against Fulham, so maybe an alternative there, more of a stretch on that one. But it's really the Sunday the 7th of February again, which is the other standout, which is obviously the big clash at the top. Liverpool versus Man City, very tough game to call.
Yeah.
Are Man City going to be getting passing bonus in that game? Not sure, maybe. But Wolves are dreadful, and Leicester are playing them, and you get to see the lineup. So suddenly you've got a Maddison or a Barnes captain over a Salah or a Gundogan or a Cancelo.
I feel a bit vulnerable without Leicester.
Yeah, so I mean they just offer an alternative on certainly 2 out of the 3 days. The third one was a stretch. The middle one was a stretch. So they're an option as well. And to be honest, if I had a 3-hit team, I would certainly have Gundogan, Jack Grealish, Maddison, Son. I'd have all these guys, but I don't. So I've got to pick one of them and hope to get it right.
Yeah. Right. Well, we're gonna look at those captains coming up in Gameweek 21 in a bit of detail in a sec. But I'll put my team up. So, Now I've gone for a formation of 5-3-2, which I'm never happy with wholly, but I'm okay with until overall. So I'm gonna run with it for the next 3 or 4 games until I can transform it. So I've got Ederson, Stones, Cancelo, and Diaz, with Holding and Dallas still there. And then I've got Antonio, Grealish, and Fernandes, and then up top I've got Kane and Salah. So I've gone quadruple City defence. So the Cancelo, not captaining Cancelo, and instead I captained Antonio. I'll come to that in a sec. So not captaining Cancelo, having those 4 City defenders didn't hurt me as bad as some of those who perhaps only had 2 City and didn't captain Cancelo or didn't own him. So I felt okay with that, and that I got over 100 points, so happy with that. Antonio I captained, and I would do it again because
very unlucky.
He was. I mean, I owned him for that Norwich game last season, and that was an absolute game changer. And he could have got that easily. I did not expect that with Palace. I thought Palace would put up a better fight of it. I certainly didn't expect the 2 Souček goals. But Antonio, we could have got a huge haul. It bodes well. Let's hope his legs survive, because I'm very happy there. So on the whole, ideally I wouldn't have Holding and Dallas still, but I'm pretty happy with all of them. I'm happy with Salah, Fernandes, Grealish, Antonio, all of the rest. They've got very maxing out on that City defence. Team
looks very strong.
It looks fine. I'm fine with that, and that's why I made an awful move this week. I didn't nail the captains and still got more than 100. So that makes me feel a bit better about things. Kane is the issue. Obvious move, Kane to Son. That would take me to 19 transfers then. I'm not gonna do anything fancy pants like I did last night getting rid of Mane. I'm just gonna go straight for the obvious. Son is gonna get me points.
Just don't utter the words in your mind, this will be my last transfer to Oval. No, because you know what happens after that instantly.
No, well,
don't say those words.
I don't want. So basically, if there is another major transfer, major injury, it's possible. I'll have about 2 million in the bank. So that I would look at doing something involving possibly getting rid of Holding or Dallas. I don't know. I don't want to get rid of. I don't want to ruin that City quadruple up.
I just wonder who's next on the list. We've got Bruno, we've got Salah.
Oh God! I mean,
Stones has got the worst injury record in the history of man, I think, and has somehow survived for like 7 or 8 weeks. So he's round the corner. Holding usually gets injured a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be
Antonio.
Antonio,
the poster boy.
Yeah. Grealish card, arguing with the ref at the end. And of course, we've got rotation. We keep forgetting Pep Guardiola's in charge of Man City, so Cancelo on the bench next could happen. Let's have a look at some of these fixtures coming up. So we've got for Gameweek 21. So we'll look down the list here. We've got some interesting matchups. We've got Everton against Newcastle, Palace against Wolves, City against Sheffield United, West Brom, Fulham, Arsenal, Manchester United, Southampton, Villa. Lots of choice there. But for me, I've got mine on Diaz at the moment. But who would be your choice that day?
Well, actually, straight away screams out as another option I didn't mention, which is Calvert-Lewin, which is probably popular in the FPL Lark, and we've not mentioned him. So he's another one that you could move Kane to. The thing with Sky is, I know the fixtures are good, but there isn't really, apart from this day, because you get to see the lineups, and he's home to Newcastle, which, I mean, it's the easiest game in the calendar right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
He then plays away to Leeds, so in a basketball match again. And then the final day away to Man United, not particularly good, but Man United have been shipping the odd goal, haven't they? So it's not the worst. Very unlikely to stay on that Monday, I think, by the way, that game. So,
yes.
Might be a captain.
If it was not so close to overhaul, I'd be doing that. He's one I'm considering in Fantasy Premier League, not Sky. But within Sky, I feel there's just other options this day. There's the Man City. If you've got a Man City player against Sheffield United, could be a good game for Fernandes as well. Grealish away to Southampton. These are all good options.
There's lots of options. I mean, I suppose as ever, we'll have to look out for the noises for Pep's teams. What team we think will be at home to Sheffield United. Not that guarantees anything, but for me, I feel like it'll probably be Cancelo again. Because similar to the West Brom game, they're home to a side where they should be getting passing bonus, and Cancelo's pretty much up front. So why wouldn't I do it?
Yeah.
There's a chance he misses out though, because they've got a hard fixture run coming up. Lots of hard games, and you feel like where's the rest going to come for someone like Cancelo, and that one does make sense.
He has options,
I mean, this could be the time where the people who were brave last time, like me on Cancelo, suddenly get punished for being brave the next time. So I'm still undecided at the moment. It's still on Cancelo though.
In my B team, I know we don't really talk about our B teams much this season, but in my B team I have Gundogan, and I will be captaining him definitely.
I think that's pretty safe.
Moving on to the Game Week 21 fixtures on the Sunday, we have Chelsea against Burnley, Leicester against Leeds, West Ham, Liverpool, Brighton, Tottenham. So this is where we were talking about Son, but we were talking about Leicester being viable alternatives. And I think most people will probably go Salah this day. So makes me want to get Son in even more.
I mean, mine will be Salah by default. I would have thought. If I do the Sun move, which is the most likely, I'll probably still go on Salah just because I'm not sure. I mean, I just don't like that. They're both really tough games, but you just feel like when Salah's got penalties, even though he's been terrible of late. Well, I suppose that's a bit harsh. He did score a goal last night that was offside. He scored a couple in the cup, didn't he? He's not been terrible in that regard. I just mean in terms of his returns have been terrible. It always puts you off. But for me, it will just be the fact that he's got penalties. The other worry, though, is Liverpool's team so decimated by injuries at the back that you could argue Antonio is a good captain this week. He's against anyone, he can do it. He could easily ragdoll them at the back.
They don't have any centre-backs. So, the likes of Henderson are being drafted in. So, I think if anyone... I wouldn't say captain Souček, but if you do have Souček, keep him for this one. It could be good.
I am half tempted to go Antonio in that game, just because... The thing is, it's that whole fear factor of like when you're up there and you know that nearly everyone will be on Salah regardless. He does anything, then you suddenly drop down the ranks.
Salah's not in my thoughts. Now you mentioned about Leicester against Leeds. That I think if you had Barnes or Maddison, I think if I had Barnes, I would be tempted because I know he's going to be getting shot. Leeds absolutely just welcoming shots to their goal. And Barnes, he may not find the net every time, but he just really goes for it. He really got it. He's always got his shooting boots on.
It's like I said, I honestly feel like the safest captain this week would be like a Thiago Silva on that day. Just 10 points home to Burnley, hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But the one I'd really like would be a Barnes or a Maddison, yeah. And unfortunately, I'll probably end up on Salah or Son, which I don't have particular faith in, but they're world-class players, so they could easily do something, couldn't they?
Yeah, I think it'll be Son for me, if not, probably Antonio. He's really impressed me recently. Moving on down the fixtures, on Tuesday we've got Sheffield United against West Brom, Wolves, Arsenal, Manchester United, Southampton, Newcastle, Palace. So yeah, some interesting options there. I mean, I guess Fernandes is going to be the most popular, but will he be the best one? I'm not sure.
No, I mean, given his ownership and everything, I know he's been terrible recently. Again, for returns more than actual performance, I'm talking. It's just Bruno, isn't it? I just don't see where else. I mean, you could go Rob Holding. I think he could quite easily get passes, and maybe Wolves couldn't score. You might get a 10-pointer there, but I don't particularly trust Arsenal defence away from home. They got lucky recently.
Zaha. I think if you have Zaha against Newcastle,
yeah, and he's a name we've not mentioned. Is Zaha again? If you look back for the 3 games now, so
really good fixtures.
Palace have got really good 3 games, amazing 3 games, really. Home to Wolves. I mean, if anyone's going to score, it's going to be Zaha in that game, isn't it? Will be involved. Then away to Newcastle, again the same thing. Yeah. Surely he's going to get something in that game.
You would imagine so.
And then the very final games versus Leeds, where they're vulnerable to teams running at them in the central areas and stuff. And Zaha, he's all about that. So again, another one where if I was on that free hit team where I just made it right now, Zaha would be in there. But I'm not going to be bringing him in. I'm just going to have to. The fact that he's not that highly owned in the top thing means it's almost insignificant. But if you're looking for those, if you're sat with those high amount of transfers and you're not sure who to get, I do think there are other routes. As we've discussed, there's a lot of players you can go to, and one of these guys is going to bang for sure.
Moving on to the Wednesday, Burnley City, Fulham, Leicester, Leeds, Everton. Leicester again have good fixture. Villa against West Ham, Liverpool against Brighton. I mean, Salah's going to be probably my choice, just the obvious one. I think most people will go there. But you know, the City assets, definitely.
For me it'll be a City player, I think, because we get to see the lineups, which is a rare treat, isn't it? So if I see that player against Burnley again, I'll be tempted just to. If Cancelo starts, then I'll probably just do Cancelo or Diaz because it's 10 points. Thank you very much. Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you said it like that. Maybe I should follow that advice. But I think this is partly because I'm a Brighton fan, so I know that Brighton's defence, on the underlying stats wise, is fine, but if they just each of their defenders switches off at some point. Salah is on penalties.
Salah could easily punish. Yeah,
I just cannot see Salah not getting something out of that.
City smash Burnley every year, though, don't they? It's like 5-0 or something.
They do. Also, those with Sterling, I know Sterling may look at his record against Burnley and think, well, he never plays, never does well. Well, that's at home, but away he does play. There's something, I don't know what it is. I'd love to know. That'd probably be my main question to Pep Guardiola when he retires. Sterling, is why do you never play Sterling at home to Burnley? He just never does. But anyway, so he's an option there. And we'll see the team sheets as well. So
and if you think they're going to get 4 or 5 goals, then the argument becomes, well, and Gundogan starts, then I guess Gundogan again's the best captain on that day.
He'll be my
penalties.
B team captain where I have Gundogan. The Thursday is Tottenham-Chelsea, which we've spoken about. Yeah, it's that choice. We said, do we get if we get Son in, go attack, or just get Thiago Silva in? And now we noted something about Tuchel's his new formation, really, the way he's doing it. So lots of rotations expected, but Hudson-Odoi was taking the sort of Victor Moses role. in that he's a wing back, but basically a midfielder and a winger. So, but on the other side, it was Chilwell, who's more interesting as a defender and playing pretty much the same, really high up. So if it looks like Chilwell is maintaining that role on the flank, then he could be a very interesting Chelsea asset going forward, perhaps post-overhaul. I think. I know you had Chilwell for a time, and he did you well.
Yeah, it was really annoying because he was doing very well, but Zuma cost $1.5 million or $2 million less or whatever it is, and was doing better, which was really frustrating. So at one point, I was convinced I wanted to get them both in my team, but obviously that quickly took a nosedive. I think ignoring on this day is just more is so viable in the end. I know people are saying, oh yeah, we've got to get Son for this thing, but if you can avoid Son hauling, I mean, Son's only 12% owned in the top 1k at the moment, which is very low, really. So
that's going to rocket, you would imagine. Antonio's went absolutely huge. In a week.
It'll go up a lot, but like I say, I think because there's so many alternatives and some people may not fancy them now, Kane's not in there. I don't know if it will raise that much. And if you look at nearly every other player's ownership, I mean, Chelsea forwards are all owned by 0.1%. Werner owned by 0.1% of the top 1k. I mean, for good reason, he's been shit. But do you know what I mean? It's crazy that there's lots of players in these teams that have got no ownership. So what I'm trying to say is you don't have to have the fear factor. If we come to that day and Chelsea win 4-0, you're not going to move anywhere in the rankings. No one's going to have any of these people. So you don't need to worry.
Let's come on to some community questions. Now, we've sort of answered a lot of these already, but let's get these covered off. So Dan Cox, former winner. Who do we place Kane with? Who isn't Salah? So I guess, that's an intriguing... If someone's without Salah at the moment, would that be a good alternative to Kane?
Who's that? Sorry, I missed that.
Dan Cox asked it, but he was saying basically, I've completely turned his question around and posed a different question. But he's saying, who do we replace Kane with? I think we pretty much covered that. We think Son is the obvious one, but there are other good options.
That is the obvious one. Calvert-Lewin.
But he was saying he's obviously got Salah. So he's saying, who do we replace Kane with? Who isn't Salah? But it intrigued me. There may be people out there without Salah and thinking, would Salah actually be quite a good replacement for Kane?
I mean, it's hard to sell him at the moment, but I'd probably go to Salah if I didn't have him, just because it's Salah, which isn't really a particularly good answer. But if he has to go to another forward, if he literally has to go to another forward, then Son is the obvious, with Calvert-Lewin being the backup, I would say. But otherwise, I prefer the midfielders we've discussed.
There is the option of just doing nothing, just letting Kane sit there, but then that's a 3-for-0 gone, and there's
it's a 3-for-0,
and it depends.
So how many more times we're going to get that in the season?
So Reese asks, what to do with Kane? He is currently 206th in the world, and he's got 17 transfers left. So he's wondering, is it worth essentially just leaving Kane or replacing? I would say 17's fine. Replace, use one up.
Unless you've got one swap left. I don't think having swaps left is a factor in your decision, because I just said these 3-for-0s won't happen particularly often throughout the season. So the value you're getting out of that transfer is potentially pretty high, because a lot of those guys we've discussed there have got good games. I just use it begrudgingly.
FPL Fido, same question. He's got 25 transfers left. Is it worth moving Kane on? He said. Yes. With 25 transfers.
Go wild.
He's splashing.
Get Maddison, Barnes, Calvert-Lewin, Zaha.
He can afford to get someone else in and get him out again and getting someone else in. Hornet, Kane to Son for the single match day. So we've covered that. That's the obvious move, but there are other options. FPL Dempsey, thoughts on Chelsea assets for the upcoming single game day with Spurs? So ignore Spurs altogether, just go Chelsea. You mentioned Silva looks to be the sort of guy that's guaranteed to get some kind of passing tier, etc.
We just don't have enough information to answer that question, do we? No. If you could tell me now, for example, Azpilicueta was going to play all 3 games, his stats were very good last week. And he's old faithful in Skies, and he always gets passing tackles, even man of the match. I quite like him, but I just don't see how you can go any of them right now, because we just don't know who's going to play and where. The only midfielder I would say that feels like he's kind of nailed, maybe that's brave, is Ziyech, because he's just he's unique in terms of he's pretty much the only guy who can play on the right hand side. So if you're looking for an absolutely wild punt, then I would say Ziyech is an alternative.
Well,
I wouldn't go there myself.
One to monitor for the overhaul. Dragos asks, is Kane to Gundogan viable? He's got 16 transfers left. We mentioned that. That is I think it is quite good if you can either ignore.
Exactly what I'm weighing up.
It's a good move. If I did that, I would have quintuple City. So if I captain one, I would have. my tiny brain can't cope with that. Transfers. Ian Parrott.
Imagine, by the way, Joe. Imagine you did do that, right?
Yeah.
And then Pep, because it just puts out his entire B team for one of the games, which we've seen before happen. And you just have 6 players not play or something.
I would very, very gently press the off switch on my computer. Get my dog lead, get the dog, and just go for a walk, crying. As all the dog walkers of Somerset look at me saying, "Why is that man crying?"
The funny thing is, you probably wouldn't even drop that much because nearly everyone's got 4 or 5 of them.
No, I wouldn't.
It's exactly the same move I'm weighing up. It's Son or Gundogan for me, and I haven't ruled out Gundogan at all. In fact, he may even be slightly favourite above Son. I don't know. It's one of those two.
Ian Parrin, who is the fixture guy, fixture guru, let's call him. He asked a question about transfers. For those in and around the top 1 or 2K, is this a decent assessment of the current transfers remaining? 15 transfers left. It's tight. 16 to 20, workable. 21 to 25, handy. And 26 more, golden. Do you agree with that assessment from Ian?
I do, but you've obviously got to put where they are in the rankings alongside that. So I very much agree with that bracket. But at the end of the day, he said if you got over, what did you say, over 26 or over 25? Though over 26, golden. Yeah, as long as you're still high in the rankings.
Yeah.
If you've got over 26 and you're sat really low down and you just haven't used swaps, then that's mismanagement for me. You've not used them.
Yeah, I think we were saying if you're in the 2K. So if you're say, if you're say 1500 in the world.
Give me 26 swaps all day.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a very, very good assessment. I mean, you could still say that you could even do a bracket under because I'm sure there's lots of people with 10 or less.
Yeah.
What's below tight? But there has been seasons in the past, and Sky managers will back me up on this, where we've had little use for swaps. We've even had times where we've had 20 swaps going into the last sort of month and a half, and they've been a hindrance because we've been taking out template players to make moves, and they've ended up costing points. So we don't know what we get. I'd say that's unlikely at the moment, given COVID and fixture rearrangements and the amount of captain days that it won't benefit you. But there is always that chance. So nailing that overhaul team is going to, I would say, more than how many swaps you've got left. Nailing your overhaul team is more important. I would personally think.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as I discussed right at the start, you're going to need some luck. If all these big hitters are getting injured every week, then I'm out the running. It's as simple as that. I don't have swaps to keep up.
I've all of that bad luck. I think most of us have had really, but I've gone, from Vardy to Kane, getting rid of Mane, having KDB as well. This is a lot of transfers.
So many swaps and injury this season.
Not many points. On to differentials. This is where the strategy of keeping a player like Mane comes into it. Ollie Poole asks, he's 319th and 47 points off the top 100. He's got 19 transfers left. What tips do we have for cracking on pre-overhaul? And so, for example, for him, he's got Neto he's not keen on. And he's looking at a player like Maddison. And I guess Harvey Barnes would be in that group as well. Would that be a worthwhile transfer to do pre-overhaul?
I think so. 19 swaps left. Yeah, I'd ideally like to have more. The value of a transfer again. At the moment, it doesn't look like Neto's going to get any points in these next 3 games, but he could do. Yeah. He has been a good player up till now. Maddison, he's a player who's looked very good, control you, and could be 3 2-pointers. So I see why he's thinking about it. Historically, the midfielders like Maddison, they are often feast or famine. So it's not guaranteed that on netting points. But I just feel the games are so good, and the fact that we've already discussed that they do offer alternative captains on at least 2 of the 3 days gives him the chance for that one to be worth it. So I would probably do that one.
Yeah.
But it's by no means. I like the way he's weighed that up strongly, because on paper you just say just do it, but it's not as simple as that. No. So about yes for me.
Here's a question I like. It's from John NUFC. What players can bust the template? So he's listed Treble City, Bruno, Grealish, Salah, Antonio. That only leaves 4 differential places. So that's including, I guess, for many people, a Kane replacement. So who should those 3 or 4 players be that could possibly help bust the template? And I guess this is pre-overhaul mainly we're thinking. Not suggesting people make 3 transfers, but who are the sort of players that you could perhaps bring in for pre-overhaul to bust that template? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we've discussed quite a lot of them. The likes of Maddison, Barnes, Zaha, Calvert-Lewin, all stand out to me. Gundogan, I don't think you mentioned there, still probably not that massively highly owned. It's still an option. Son's obviously now an option. We discussed them a lot these guys are the ones I would say, but how much of a dent can they make in 3 weeks is questionable. So there is also that chance of, well, don't really look for alternatives. We're still only halfway. I mean, there's still a long way to go, and later on in the line there'll be people who run out of swaps, like me probably, will get a big injury, and then you're looking at a 10-0 or something for the last 10 games of the season. So yeah, I'd still be slightly cautious now. I think the big rush for points and using transfers, the Rob Holdings and the Man City jumping on everyone is now coming to the point where it starts to be questionable as to whether it's worth it, because the games are running out. The time was a little while ago. So one of those guys, the problem is you just don't know which one, right? It could be any of them, it could be none of them, and that's the thing with these assets. They're not massively consistent compared to some of the others.
I mean, what I've sort of done it with one of my places. So I've got Holding Dallas, that I'm not happy with, and I've gone for a fourth Man City defender. So I've bulked up there. So those with 2 to 3 Man City defenders, I'm already going to be 10 points up. That's my theory there. If I captain them and the other person doesn't captain a Man City defender, 20 points up in theory. So that's the aim really. So that's the way I've tried to do it. But I think some of those other options that you mentioned there, I think are great. Leicester, Calvert-Lewin, these are going to be low-owned players. People not going for them.
And I'll say him again, Thiago Silva. He could get 30. If you look at his games, he could get a clean sheet in all. He could get passing bonus in all. And then if you had him captain versus Spurs and they kept it, then suddenly that's a 40-point transfer.
Yeah.
But am I confident that happens? No, but it could do. 40 points.
What we're going to do is we're going to wrap up with some quick sort of thoughts of what to do post-overhaul. So we haven't got to that stage yet. It's hard to get our heads around it at the moment. But Liam Dorian, who is of course another winner, he asked, how many defenders are we considering post-overhaul? And also, if KDB is fit straight after overhaul, will he make your team? So I guess he's thinking about formation there, flexibility, but probably hinting at City defence as well. Are you...
Yeah.
Going forward, you're happy with a treble City defence, and what do we do if KDB's suddenly back?
Yeah, I've made a few drafts, but because the landscape changes all the time, I'm not 100%. In terms of defenders, it'll almost certainly be 4. I can't see me having less than 4. I think they're just too good because of these Man City defenders. Possibly 3. I mean, there's an argument that you could just have 3 Man City defenders, Cancelo, Diaz, and Stones, and not bother with any of the rest of them. I don't think that's a bad idea. So yeah, 4 I think is probably what I'm looking at, and I see where he's going with the Kevin De Bruyne factor. I mean, it's not like Kevin De Bruyne's been great this season at all anyway. He's been, the fear factor's always there with him. He can haul at any point, but at the end of the day, if you're going to captain Diaz or Cancelo or someone over him, similar to Van Dijk over Salah last season, then do you really need him? I mean, the fact, if you'd have done that nearly every time, you'd be way up. I mean, I've captained Kevin De Bruyne every single time, probably only 1 or 2 times as it worked out. So, yeah, even when De Bruyne comes back, despite him being like my favourite player in the league and the best player in the league, I might not have him. So same as him, I might not. And just, because the thing is, we still need to cover captain days, right?
Yeah.
And we've got so many City players, you're suddenly running out. Who's better out of Kevin De Bruyne than the defenders? Well, the defenders are.
And I can see so many times where we lose out on Cancelo or Diaz points because we captained KDB. We actually can lose points by having KDB. Could be a drain on points.
Yeah.
And Kelvin asks a similar question. Post overall is 5-3-2 with 4 City defenders the way to go, and we'll have some cash in the bank for some flexibility if needed.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't touch the left back because we just don't know for sure. If you tell me Zinchenko was nailed, then I'll get him. So when he says 4 City defenders, I guess he means Edison.
Yeah.
And then you don't need a back 5. I would always try to avoid the back 5 just because it puts you into that 5-3-2, which isn't manageable for a long time.
No.
Suddenly, if you get a player injured in midfield and there are no other midfielders, you're like, well, I'm forced to get a midfielder now. I don't want one. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would never set up in that way. However, if you're very, very low on swaps, which some people I guess will be, and you're just trying to play the game of, well, I'm going to ignore captain days, I'm just going to go for max points, then you can easily set up with with Zinchenko, Edison, all of the defenders, the entire back five of Man City in a 5-3-2 and just leave it and never make swaps. It could do well, but it's not for me.
And Brian Edmonton, is there another block defence for us to target? So we're talking about City, but is there another one? You mentioned Thiago Silva, and I mentioned Chilwell. Could Chelsea be that one, maybe?
I suppose it could be. It's just impossible to say right now. I would only consider a block defence where they also get bonuses as well, I think, and Chelsea therefore tick that box. Liverpool you can't touch, they're too expensive and they've got too many injuries. And there's not really anything else out there that I particularly like. I mean, Villa and West Ham offer cheap alternatives where you could do blocks and they could do well for clean sheets, but they don't really get the bonus and they've got other better options. So I think no is the answer, unless Chelsea show us something in the coming days, coming weeks rather.
Well, thanks everyone for your questions. Before we go, a quick reminder of the Fantasy Football Scout members area. That's where we get a lot of our useful stats and information for Sky managers and FPL managers alike. So do check out the website for details. In the meantime, Luke, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with your game week.
Thanks a lot, Joe.